There's no place to escape to.
This is the last podcast.
On the left. That's when the cannibalism started.
What was that?
It is a massive spoiler.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Baked beans. them inescapable Texas baked beans.
That's not. No, that's actually true. It ends in a chili cook-off.
Tri-tip. It's all tri-tip.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Sorry, guys.
All right, are we ready to start? Welcome to the last podcast on the left, everyone. I am Ben Kissel with Marcus Parks.
Hi.
All right, we got chili cook-off Henry Zabrowski.
Just know that if you were if the end of the world is coming and you happen to be in a trailer hosted by somebody that used to fake fuck Roseanne, at the very end, when you finally get out of that situation, whatever it may be, tense or otherwise, you are leaving that to go get some fine Houston barbecue.
What happened to the other Darlene, John Goodman?
No, she was consumed.
That's right.
The other Darlene was chopped up and consumed by that family, because that's what nobody got to the end of Roseanne and the end of the 12th season, however many seasons it is. Turns out they are a bunch of delusional cannibals.
That makes sense. But she's so funny with her little chicken and the egg shirt. I like it.
I did not remember that.
You don't remember
Is she the lesbian?
All right. So
Which one was the lesbian?
Not Roseanne. You're thinking of Rosie O'Donnell.
No. Rosie O'Donnell. When I get mixed up with Rosie O'Donnell, normally I'm concerned. It's a hippo with a bunch of gasoline on top of it on fire.
All right, so we're talking about Roswell. We're on to part 2. This is going to get intense.
It's going to get super intense.
My brain is full.
Yeah.
I have literally been doing nothing but wall-to-wall Roswell research to the point where I'm back to being confused. I was certain it was aliens, and then it had to be the Russians, and now I'm back to aliens.
Mm-hmm. Well, is it possible the aliens are Russians?
Shut up. Out of my head! Get out of my head!
Let's go over a real quick timeline before we continue with the story.
Can there be like timeline music?
July 3rd, 1947. Mac Brazel finds a peculiar crash debris on the Foster Ranch. July 5th, 1947. Mac Brazel hears of a $3,000 reward for the debris of a flying saucer.
UFOs.
July 6th, Major Jesse Marcel comes out to the Mac Brazel Ranch and inspects the wreckage, then sends some to Washington, D.C.
Mysterious.
July 8th, 1947. Information about a UFO crash is put on the AP wire and is picked up by multiple newspapers across the nation.
Multiple newspapers, U.S. People, Magazine, Entertainment Weekly.
July 9th, 1947. Mac Brazel officially retracts his story while wreckage is sent to Wright Airfield in Dayton, Ohio.
Flip-flopper alert! Flip-flopper alert! Hillary Clinton should be hearing that every day, shouldn't she, Ben Kissel?
That's
That's my political commentary for the day.
Flip-flopper.
She's got a big old pussy!
That's brilliant. So we're in Dayton, Ohio, huh? The documents got sent to Dayton.
Well, the debris was on its way to Dayton, Ohio. Now, weather balloon or not, a small amount of the debris was packed up into 4 brown paper-wrapped packages and loaded into a B-29 by Major Jesse Marcel, who, of course, is the #1 witness to Roswell. He was ordered to supervise the transfer.
Well, you know that Jesse Marcel did not actually himself put those on a plane. It was a janitor named Barney.
Right. I mean, they just wrapped it up like a leg of lamb. Did they tie
like
it
in the
with
movie
little...
Scrooged when he shows up with his dad and the flashback shows up with him being like, hey, that's $100 worth of veal.
Right.
Yeah, that's how it looked.
So they have no respect for the debris. They don't think this is even going to be a story.
Well, in 1947, that's just how you transported everything. You just wrap it up in a brown bag. They didn't know really what it was. They knew that it was important, but on the other hand, you also don't want to draw a lot of attention to it.
Because all their fathers were butchers. That was the only job that they could have gotten.
So much butcher paper everywhere. Everybody had the roll in their house.
Right.
But if you listen to Chuck Wade, Wade, this is a part of the idea that the military was aware that UFOs were around.
So who is Chuck Wade?
Chuck Wade is the man that was the grandson of the man who owned the bar that Brazel went to when he first discovered the debris and got hammered in, and when he found out that it was worth $3,000.
Right.
That man has built a whole life on retelling the Roswell story from the perspective of a bar inhabiting yokel.
He's built a whole life on that.
A whole life. You'd be
whole
surprised how many people have built entire careers off of this story. 10. 10 people.
I'm not surprised.
But his belief is that the U.S. government was aware of the UFOs and was using radars as offensive weapons in order to take them down. The Roswell Air Force Base was one of the people that was on the network of radar stations that were being used to take down the UFOs, but a lot of the people at the base were on a need-to-know basis, and Jesse Marcel did not need to know that information.
Did Chuck Wade need to know?
He didn't need to know, but he had to know. You know what I mean?
Yes, I like that.
Now, the original destination of this B-29 flight, loaded up with debris, was Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio. Now, at the time, Wright Field was the location, and this is true, it was the location of the Foreign Technology Division, who had, throughout World War II, been in charge of reverse engineering capture technology.
So if it was going to go any place, it would go to Wright Field.
Exactly. The Wright Field is by far the most logical place for alien technology to go to.
This is a part of where the little tiny bits of data that you can kind of hang the truth hat on, like little hooks, like it's a fun little apartment, and you have hooks up where data goes on.
Right.
This is one of those hooks.
Exactly.
Where the idea is that it just follows the logic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Ohio got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, and then a bunch of junk from space. Those are the two things in Ohio.
Yes.
Yeah,
Cool.
Pretty much. And in fact, as far as this foreign technology goes, Philip J. Corso, an intelligence officer who worked for Army Research and Development, had quite a bit to say about what we recovered from Roswell and what we did with it in his book, The Day After Roswell.
If you have not read The Day After Roswell and you like aliens, please read The Day After Roswell. This is the 1950s sci-fi version of the story that we were talking about.
Right.
It's all in there, and Philip J. Corso has painted himself as sort of like the hero of this story, being like, I knew the truth, and I know that the aliens were there, and we took toasters from the alien UFOs. But if you look at Philip J. Corso is a 97-pound Jewish man that has become an action hero in his story.
My favorite book is The Day Before Roswell. There's a whole chapter on how to make your day more exciting by calling fart cloud pants. Clouds for your pants. Just calling farts clouds for your pants.
No, Corso claims that in 1961, he was given the official files on the material that we recovered from Roswell and was instructed to filter the technology from the military into the mainstream via industrial development.
You fold it in like chocolate into a delicate mousse.
Oh, yeah, now you're talking.
No, eventually, through reverse engineering, people like Corso were able to develop such modern technology as lasers, integrated circuitry, fiber optic networks, accelerated particle beam devices, and even the Kevlar used in bulletproof vests.
Tickle Me Elmo, Betamax, spinny hats that
Herbie?
little kids wear. That we use with spinny hats when little kids wear. Yes, you see them in the pictures of the 1920s. What that is time travelers from the future, from the 40s, going back into the 20s and putting them on kids' heads.
Interesting.
And also condoms.
You've never seen a skinny kid with a spinny hat because they'll just go right up.
Yeah.
You gotta be fat, stay low.
Pinion.
That's right.
Now let's get back to Jesse Marcel and the B-29 flight. Shortly before takeoff, the plane was diverted from Wright Field to Fort Worth, Texas.
And this is also because of tri-tip.
Yeah.
Correct?
Also because of tri-tip, because they just needed some of that sweet tri-tip action in Fort Worth.
Tri-tip. The barbecue?
Yeah.
A lot of food references to that.
I'm hungry.
Yeah. Yeah, they had the Billy Bob's downtown. Beautiful barbecue.
Oh, it's the best.
Yeah. Now, Marcel reported directly to General Roger M. Ramey as soon as they landed and gave him the boxes, which Ramey placed on the desk of his office.
No, nobody even considered the fact that these things could be highly radioactive.
Right.
No, it's like nobody even, right? Or
no, they actually did bring out a Geiger counter on that very first trip when Marcel loaded everything up into the trunk of his car and took it to show it to his wife and
to his
kid
child?
at
Right.
2 a.m. No, they did bring a Geiger counter out there, and they did find that it was not
it
radioactive.
just feels like a Geiger counter. You're literally looking at an alien spacecraft. You just stick a Geiger counter at it and be like, seems all good.
Right.
Like, no clue what it is. You don't know what it is. It could be filled with seeds. You don't know what kind of alien seeds it's on it. Or an alien could have coughed on it, and then all of a sudden we got a super plague.
Who knows?
But that's a part of the reason why they talk about why the alien secret is kept so closely is because a lot of these aliens are literally covered in intergalactic microbes that can potentially end the human race.
Sure. I mean, if you travel overseas, you'll get sick immediately. So you could imagine a extraterrestrial
If
being.
you just
what
go into an
disease they're
elevator
carrying.
with the man from Thailand, you're going to get sick.
That's right. And the man from Thailand won't be thrilled with you either.
Because the problem is that they have different standards when it comes to coughing and sneezing.
No, it's just because they have different bugs and things like that we're not immune to yet.
They have old handkerchiefs.
I don't know if that's a stereotype.
No, Marcel, he comes into General Ramey's office. He hands Ramey the boxes. Ramey puts the boxes on his desks and said, hey, listen, let's go into this other room. I need you to show me on a map exactly where this crash happened. Marcel goes in. He says, all right, it's right here. It's near Corona, about 75 miles outside of Roswell.
These are the direct coordinates.
These are the direct coordinates. They come back to the office, and Jesse Marcel finds that the 4 boxes were missing, and they were replaced by a clean yet mangled radar kit of reflective foil, wooden sticks, masking tape, and baling twine with a little bit of rubber thrown in. In other words, all the makings of a weather balloon.
And the only thing Ramey could say afterwards was, gotcha. Presto changeo. What if they just went into the other room and it was just Ramey showing him one of those pens that you turn upside down where the woman gets naked on the side of it?
Look at that.
Whoa.
Look
Wait. What?
Look at that. Whoa. And then you turn it. Look at that.
Booby. What? Whoa.
That used to be porn.
That is porn. And then you go out and then every single bit of hard facts about UFOs is gone.
Immediately.
The rest of time gone.
Whoa.
U.S. history's changed.
That chick's got boobies in the pen.
Look at that.
So that UFO material's gone. Could I get the pen?
Yeah, and then Marcel said that after he came back and the material was missing and replaced with the weather balloon stuff, he's understandably confused. But then he overheard Ramey giving orders over the telephone that the official story was going to be it was a weather balloon, and that story should be disseminated as far and as fast as humanly possible. And after the phone call, Marcel was then ordered by Ramey to pose with the material for a photographer, which would prove to the world that the story was nothing more than a big misunderstanding. And Major Jesse Marcel is the man with the goofball smile.
No, this is the famous photo.
In the famous Roswell photo, holding up and this is what I think is very weird. This is a very weird thing about the photo, is that this weather balloon, this foil, supposedly crashed in the middle of the New Mexico desert, which is dusty and dirty, and the foil is immaculately clean.
Yeah, it should look like a lot lizard's face
Right.
by the time you get to it. It's been sitting out, and it's like swirling winds, craggy rocks, lizard shit, all the horse shit that's in the middle of a New Mexico desert, and it's like brand new. It's like you just peeled it off a goddamn potato, and they're flaunting it.
They're still flaunting a mistake. They still messed up. I'm going to take their story as fact. Weather balloons are expensive. Heads should roll. Fire them all.
You know what's interesting though is that they were, but we brought this up last week. They we're firing off 2 weather balloons a fucking day.
Every day.
I can make a weather balloon.
How do you
could
do it?
literally leave here. You get a parachute.
Yeah.
A pair of your old pants for when you were huge, right? Sew up the leg
still work.
holes, and
Yeah.
you get a bunch of tinfoil, and you strap it to a bunch of kite wire, and you throw it up in a goddamn sky.
Well, then you just ask her what the weather is up there? How do you get the information back?
And then yada, 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 harp, lasers, temperature
I
gauges.
see.
Reflection, bouncing.
Oh, okay.
You bounce the
Balloons.
signals.
What I gotta feel bad is for all the children's parties in the area where all the balloons are being confiscated from children, being like, that's evidence! It's evidence!
That's right. Good Lord.
Now, after this famous photo, the story was killed the following day with the inspiring headline,
It's a balloon.
It's a balloon.
It's a balloon.
It's kind of cool.
Just, it's a balloon.
And it also was the same. That was the same headline on the National Register for Mentally Handicapped People that went out that week as well.
It's a balloon.
But it was it was a celebratory. thing.
Oh, I see.
It's a balloon.
Oh, that is exciting.
And the story stayed dead until 1978. 1947 and 1978, This was a non-story after It's a Balloon. That is when Major Marcel was tracked down by our old friend, nuclear physicist and UFO researcher, Stanton Friedman.
The most fearless pear-shaped man in existence.
Oh, personal hero of mine as well. Now, the Roswell incident was published 2 years later, and the rest is history.
Now, this is Stanton Friedman's Stairway to Heaven. Now, he has been cobbling together information about Roswell up until this point, left and right. This is before MJ-12 papers. This is him investigating the idea, because you remember the brief history we've done about Stanton Friedman is that he was a nuclear physicist. He had various security clearances and had heard bits and pieces about UFO stuff. And because he was a nerd, he was
Right.
into sci-fi as a kid. And eventually, like we are sort of doing with our lives, he is turning his childhood predilections into a career.
Absolutely. And destroying, I think, a couple of families in the process.
Very much so. But when it comes down to the truth,
Right.
it's bigger than a wife, quote
Every
unquote.
single one of his books, in the foreword, he thanks his family for putting up with him and apologizes profusely.
Well, if you've seen any one of his talks in entirety, and if you have, I will give you a $20 bill. If you watch any one of those in entirely, can you imagine spending a lifetime with the man?
You just got to learn to love him.
yeah, you got to learn to love him. Yeah, and I actually, when I got these Roswell books at the International UFO Museum and Research Center, I, of course, bought a signed Stanton Friedman book, and I asked the woman at the gift counter, I was like, how, do you know him? How is he? She's like, you know what? A lot of people think he's stodgy, but I think he's just the nicest fella in the world.
Isn't
And
that
I'm like,
something?
wow, you fucked Stanton Friedman.
Also,
Why did you make the mental leap that she had sex with him?
Why-
I could
think-
see it in her eyes.
She
Yeah,
just said that he wasn't
because
terrible.
You could know.
She
You
left
could know
it.
when someone's had sex with Stanton Friedman if their eyes can go wall-eyed independently. You know, like
She did have a veiled insult in her compliment.
both, though.
I mean, it was it was a quote. Yeah, some people say he's stodgy because apparently, I guess in Roswell, Stanton has a
bit of a reputation.
A bit of a reputation.
I'm sure he
that he's
does.
a known quantity.
Hard-nosed journalist. Also, the owner of up to 150 yards of suspenders.
Yes, and a hell of a YouTube channel.
No, and of course, after the Roswell incident came out, after they had a newfound amount of fame, Bill Pope of the Roswell Chamber of Commerce simply said,
I don't like it.
I don't like it. It's a balloon.
that was all he said was just, I don't like this.
Don't like this.
You know, this is refreshing, though. Everyone wants to be on camera now. Everyone wants to be a celebrity. I miss the old school Americans who
People
just
have been like,
needed
yeah.
attention.
Absolutely, you're just being like, I'm trying to do my job. I don't need to be on the Great American Bake Off.
No, I don't. Why can't we just have our muffins and enjoy them? And mine might not be as good as yours, but that's okay.
But this is actually very important to note. Like what you were saying is that we would not have any of the Roswell story if it wasn't for Jesse Marcel coming out in 1978. At this point,
well, who spoke first? Did Marcel speak first, and then Friedman found him, right?
No, Friedman found him
and made him talk.
Yeah,
quote,
made him
unquote.
talk.
He's like,
Okay.
I will do anything to get you to speak, including these new raspberry croissants I made. He's like, well, you know, I will literally say anything for pastry.
I will too.
But no, he goes. So Jesse Marcel is the number one witness.
Yeah.
He's the 0 point of the entire story.
And a lot of the witnesses over the years have actually signed affidavits stating that they're telling the truth. I've seen the documents.
There are many affidavits also involved with Roswell.
A lot.
Because Stanton Friedman but the problem is that it's kind of like an IOU that you write to your friend being like, I owe you $25,000 for helping me cover my DUI. Where it's just like, no, you can't just write on a piece of paper saying, I tell the truth.
Right. Flip it over and you see the IHOP menu that you wrote it on.
But that's what Stanton Friedman had devised, this way of being like, this is how we'll build a paper trail. It was very smart.
Yeah,
Right.
It was a very smart move. Yeah, and some of those people they're actually like really high-ranking, very well-respected members of the military. Unfortunately, the main source, Jesse Marcel, is not a highly respected member of the military.
He's a flawed man.
He knows how to create a more exciting conversation.
He really does. He's a great storyteller. We'll say that about Jesse Marcel. But it's important to remember that the Roswell incident, as we've said, it wasn't even spoken of in public for over 30 years.
People bought the story.
Right.
We're also looking at America at the time was a much more serious place, I believe. I believe like after the 1950s, when we were coming off of World War II, we were a very industrial nation. There were a lot of stuff going on. And everybody kind of trusted the government. But things persisted. People like Stanton Friedman was like, this smells fishy. And then you just go and you pressure an old man into saying something that I also had heard that he was very sick at the time.
Yeah, well, he didn't pressure him that much. Jesse Marcel liked to talk. He wanted to talk. And the biggest problem with Marcel is that it's very easy to bring the veracity of his statements into question because Marcel had a penchant for exaggeration. He was such an exaggerator and such a half-truth teller that tendency was even listed in his military file.
Well, all I know is I heard he had a 7-foot dick. Yeah, he told me. 7-foot dick.
Wow.
I heard that he actually had a size 17 foot, but he folded them back so he wouldn't have to buy more expensive shoes.
I heard that too.
Yeah, but it also must be said that that report that said that he had a tendency to exaggerate was written into his file after the Roswell incident. So researchers say, and this is the funny thing about Roswell, and also I think about a lot of researchers, is that the skeptics and the believers will often use the exact same evidence, but for completely different reasons.
But it's tone.
Yeah, yeah, but it's tone because, for example, researchers say that the exaggeration comment was a plant to discredit him, while skeptics say that they put it in there because Jesse Marcel exaggerated a weather balloon into a flying saucer.
I'm confused already. But you see, again, where we're going to see time and time and time and time again with the Roswell incident, and because it's point zero of all UFO thought, like it's all major UFO stories from now have sort of spread from Roswell, is the disinformation that is just ladled on top of this thing.
Well, is it because everyone's just trying to get a piece of the pie, so someone comes and talks to them about it, and even if they don't have anything to do with it, they just feel compelled to talk?
Yes.
To maybe get a little bit of money or exposure?
Because in the people kind of naturally want to please people, right?
yeah.
And so someone comes to get a randy UFO story, you want to give them a big hard boner of a UFO story.
Yeah.
But then things get involved. Things kind of shoot from there. He still was an officer, and so there's like a weird thing. And he was also, again, he was the first person on the scene. He was there with Brazel.
Yeah.
Like he came and he was the first person to see what they saw, and all of them was like, even Brazel, who's just like, what we said last episode, he had seen weather balloons.
Right.
They know what weather
Right.
balloons were. They should have just said it was a weather balloon. Like now at that point, the confusion started in that moment when they first saw the debris.
Yeah, and skeptics say that confusion is due to Jesse Marcel's penchant for exaggeration.
So he's saying he's too much of a dreamer.
Yeah.
Yes. Too creative.
Yeah. But the other thing about Jesse's story, yes, it is creative. His story tended to change quite a bit. And because of this, UFO researchers are able to cherry pick bits and pieces of Jesse's story to fit whatever narrative they need whenever their claims are debunked. They're allowed to change the story, and they feel perfectly comfortable doing so. For example, when Marcel originally told Stanton Friedman about flying the debris to Fort Worth, he claimed that he was the pilot, that he flew the material himself. But when debunkers looked into his military history, they found that he had never actually even been a pilot, despite him also claiming that he shot down 5 enemy aircraft during World War II.
And what's funny is I did it with just my finger guns.
Oh, amazing.
And it's just like, I was standing on the wing of the plane. You wouldn't believe it. Everyone said, Jesse, you're crazy. And I said, I'm crazy like a goddamn maroon.
Well, that would make you crazy.
A maroon is a type of weasel. I went out onto the wing of the plane and I was just pointing my fingers just because I knew I could.
Right.
And I took down all of the Luftwaffe with just my index fingers.
Isn't that's a passenger airliner?
Yes.
Innocent.
I had commandeered a passenger airliner. I was going to Toledo to see my sister get married. And
Right.
I got to say, we were all even surprised she was getting married because she was 475 pounds.
But you hijacked the plane.
Oh, I hijacked the plane, but I could because I told them I was a pilot.
Where were you on 9/11/2001?
Oh, I was in the grave.
Right.
Yeah, he did it. He died in the late 70s.
Oh.
But, you know, when faced with these facts that, you know, he lied about being a pilot, he lied about being an ace in World War II, researchers, they just switched to a different version of it, in which Marcel was just a ride-along supervising the transfer. And you'll see that. If you look at the Roswell incident compared with, say, like Witness to Roswell, in which a lot of the same people were involved, the story changes to fit whatever when the debunkers come in and say, like, listen, this isn't true, researchers find a story that makes sense, and then they change to that.
Changes or matures.
Right.
That's what I say.
Evolves,
The story ripens into what it's going to be. Yeah, I mean, everybody's full of shit in this story.
Yeah,
there's a lot of bull hockey going on.
But what
in
is there anything that he said that he has just stuck with the entire time that doesn't change?
That Marcel has
Yes.
said? It's things.
Is there anything that we can
the
point
material.
to? Yeah, the material.
He points to the material. Like
all say the
it
same
never
story.
changed. It never changed the story of finding the material and like the actual
The nature of it.
So the
nature
things
of the
that
material.
change are his role in the events.
Yeah.
He puts himself as in the superhero role.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody does, though.
Right.
Every person in UFO research, they all do. They all come off as Hercules. Every
Right.
one of them's the Spider-Man of the story.
Yeah,
But the thing,
except for Betty and Barney Hill, who are the victims.
they were the the Aunt May and the Uncle Ben of the stories. And I don't even just say Uncle Ben for Barney Hill because of the rice. I'm just saying it because of his role.
The role, yes.
But no, it's
He did die first.
he did die first.
It was the most difficult interracial marriage in the history of time.
Absolutely,
There was
because
an
not even
alien
just
involved.
society. It's even
Right.
just society was hard on them.
Yeah.
You got aliens raping you?
Oh my goodness, not good.
Unbelievable. But yes, everybody wants to be the main character of the little story. But yes, they all say the same stuff about the wreckage.
Yeah.
Everybody says the same thing about the featherweight
Okay.
I-beams with the insignias put on it, the memory metal, the weird, like the super strong tinfoil like shit. They all describe that, and bodies. Well, bodies came into the fact because of Frank Kaufman and the Nine, but
Right. And Marcel, he was all like, as far as other things that he lied about, he bragged to Freedom that he had a bachelor's degree in physics, that he studied at 2 different universities, but investigators found that he never attended one of the universities and didn't finish his degree at the other. And in fact, his military records state that when he was inducted into the Army, he listed his education as none.
I mean, if
or
you're-
high school.
street smarts.
Right. If you're gonna lie about it, give yourself a master's. He just went with the bachelor's degree.
Yeah, he went with the bachelor's of physics.
I don't want to go too crazy.
Well, yeah, because if the masters at some point, someone would be like, "Oh, well, you know how to handle this. You have a master's in physics," and then he would have to be like,
Let me show you my pen.
I got this pen one.
Yeah, and when faced with these outright lies, these aren't even exaggerations, these are outright lies, researchers rationalize this by saying that military records are, quote unquote, notoriously inaccurate. And that may well be, but it's a huge contradiction to, on one hand, say military records are notoriously inaccurate when it doesn't suit you,
Right.
while using those same types of records involving transfers and trips and telegrams as proof that something was going on. It's like Alex Jones saying that the mass media is lying to us about Sandy Hook and Aurora and Boston and is complicit in the globalist takeover, and then turning around and using a news story from CNN or NBC as proof
Yeah, because
that
the
the globalist takeover is
your
happening.
source material
right.
is from the globalist fucking source. It's all the
But that
same
cognitive
bullshit.
dissonance, but it doesn't add up in their mind.
But
Well,
he
there's
is right that aluminum is making kids gay.
That is possible. It's a bit of a confirmation bias as well there, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're looking for they're finding what they want. They're looking
Right.
for proof, and they're finding it in the same places that they're finding lies.
But isn't that the nature of reality in general, dog meat?
Yeah, it is.
That you seek out what you find, and what you find then shapes your reality, and then when your reality then becomes your own singular reality, and then it becomes reality itself.
Truth is
Truth is boom.
truth is boom. Now, UFO researchers claim that over the years they've gathered testimony from dozens, even hundreds of eyewitnesses. But the problem is that the vast majority of these witnesses are telling the story second or even third hand. Because this happened in 1947. The youngest witness died in 2006. So you've got people in Roswell saying, like, well, my grandpappy, he knew a feller that saw some trucks going out there on that day.
There was I was listening to a Coast to Coast from 2011 with Don Schmidt, and he was saying the same thing, where it's being like, it's just people just being like, my grandmother told me we went outside and I was flying a kite, and my grandmother was looking up at the sky, and she said, that kite is kind of like a flying saucer. And your grandpappy, he touched one once. And that's what made him gay. You know what I mean? It was like, there are all their stories about like them going out in a field and grandmother staring at the sky being like, them little green men are out there.
Yeah,
it's a fun story.
Yeah,
It is.
it's all perfect narratives. That's the problem, is that all these people have perfect narratives where real life doesn't have a perfect narrative. And out of all the witnesses, only 7 of them claim to have actually seen the debris. And a couple of those 7, by the way, were children at the time.
But what they do remember is afterwards. But that's what's interesting, though, is that the memories all line up. For that stuff, with the debris, the memories line up. And the fact that these kids were literally threatened with death by government spooks is a thing that is it's interesting.
I mean, but you could also see that, like, there's things that from when I was a kid that I don't really know whether they're dreams or whether they're reality.
You were molested.
He was not molested. It was a goblin outside of his.
Was the pig goblin real? Was the pig goblin not real?
It wasn't your uncle.
It was not my uncle. What was
real to you?
Yeah.
So then it becomes real to everyone.
Yes,
Right.
It is reality. The pig goblin of Lubbock, Texas exists.
In no way, let's make it clear, was Marcus Parks molested.
Never once.
Not one time.
Close. A couple times.
Well, now we're okay. All right. We don't want to
Sounds
really
like
know.
you were flirting with him.
Yikes.
But out of the 7 people that witnessed the debris, only 5 actually handled the material personally, and out of those 5, there's at least 1 that maintains that there was nothing extraterrestrial about it. Like, he says, like, yes, there was material, it was kind of weird, but it wasn't from outer space. Like, I don't really know where it was from, but his opinion is essentially, it was weird, but not that weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then who's talking about it? You know what I mean? He goes home and he's suspended by hooks, and he's got his dogs blowing him every night. And he was just be like, it was kind of weird, but I've seen weird. Have you ever turned yourself into a human lamp for a couple of days? That's what I do. Anyways, I better go. All this mayonnaise on my balls is starting to curdle.
I don't even want to know how you turn yourself into a human lamp.
And there have been just as many military personnel to come forward throughout the years to refute the Roswell story as there have been personnel coming out in support of it. The problem is with Roswell, and this is the central problem with Roswell, just a bunch of he said, she said bullshit.
He said, she said,
No, I
bullshit.
knew that was going to trigger Olymp
That movement double.
No.
Lots of trouble.
No. I'm sorry.
Just itch for a little bit of that bubble.
Just one of those days.
No, he went into Sir Mix-a-Lot, by the way. What the hell is happening?
And that today is that both sides have very compelling stories to tell, but both sides also have gigantic gaping holes in their story. And without any actual...
Gaping hole.
All right, do not.
And without any actual physical evidence, there's no way that we're ever going to know the truth.
Would
But
you say that you would side with the person who's rationally describing this as somewhat odd? Because, I mean, they don't want. There's no benefit for them, right? They don't.
That's the thing. Is that what do these people? The secondary witnesses afterwards, the family of the people that were witnessing it, the kids at the time, the people that were it's just ruined their lives. It's the same thing. That is the thing about alien. Either abductees or people who have been visited or people who've seen stuff. That's the problem with them coming forward, is that it literally just ruins your life every single time they're connected to it. So there really is very little benefit unless you are a whore for attention. So some of these people are, but a lot of them are not. A lot of them are very simple people who got swept into this story, and it's horrible for them. Exactly. It's like so there's something to it on that end. It's like they obviously saw something that's making them say something to this bearded nerd who woke them up in the middle of the night. Stand and Freedom just shows up at your house being like, do you have any extra pennies? Because the pennies fell out of my loafers and I just don't feel dressed.
Yeah, you get the feeling they just wanted him to leave. And they told him what he wanted to hear.
But, if it wasn't a weather balloon, and it wasn't aliens.
What could it possibly be, Marcus?
Well, we got a couple of ideas.
John Panette.
You wait here for an hour. You get out.
John Panette.
Love it. Rest in peace.
Now, this first theory comes from Annie Jacobson's book, Area 51, An Uncensored History of America's Top Secret Military Base. Annie says that, yes, there was a craft. Yes, there were bodies.
Yeah, and so what?
Those bodies, not alien.
What?
Russians!
They were the Russians the whole time.
And now a quick word from our sponsor. Today's episode of Last Podcast on the Left is brought to you by Casper Mattresses, obsessively engineered American-made mattresses at a shockingly fair price. And now you can get $50 toward any mattress purchase by going to casper.com/LEFT and using the code LEFT. See, Casper brings together two comfy technologies for better nights and brighter days. That's latex foam and memory foam. They've also got a risk-free trial and a wonderful return policy. They'll deliver it straight to your door. You can try it for 100 days, and if you're not happy, they'll pick it back up. That's $500 for a twin-sized mattress and $950 for a king-sized mattress. You compare that to industry averages, that's an outstanding price point. So get $50 towards any mattress purchase by going to casper.com/LEFT and using the code LEFT. Terms and conditions apply. And now back to the show.
But if they were just Russians, then why were they mistaken for aliens by all of the witnesses? Well, this was by design.
If you have a chance, read the last chapter of Area 51. This is what happened. I started researching the Russian angle, and this book kept popping up. I remember her being on the Colbert Report in 2011, and she was talking about this theory that we're about to deeply go into, and it's very interesting, and to me, it's another layer of disinformation, but we'll talk deeply about that.
Well, apparently, Stalin's plan was to take a bunch of mentally challenged children,
like kids that were too smart, and so they needed to be challenged. Like it was like school was too easy for them.
That's right. Yes.
No,
this is advanced classes for the Russians.
You would take these mentally challenged children, hideously deform them using Mengele-style tactics, load them into an experimental aircraft, fly said aircraft over the border from Mexico, crash land them near a population, and when the deformed, retarded children crawled out of the wreckage, they would spark a War of the World style panic.
It's a balloon. But that's a problem. They kept saying that when it came out of it. Right. It's a balloon.
It's a balloon.
Unbelievable.
It's a great idea.
To me, it's the thing that makes the most sense.
It has slowly eroded our education system. We're doing terrible, against the Chinese and things like that. So I think they might have won.
Her theory is not that it's Mengele-style tactics. Her theory is that it was Mengele himself. And that the Russians
that wasn't in the last chapter.
No, the Russians had hired him in between after World War II. He went into hiding.
Yeah.
Stalin kept him alive. Basically, they caught him, kept him alive just to make this experiment. And this is a part of what her anonymous contact, and the entire book, all of the other contacts that talk to her about Area 51, they state their names, they go on the record, or they talk about the top secret programs that are happening in Area 51. This man spoke anonymously, and he said that, yes, that Stalin and Mengele designed them, literally drew them on paper.
Right.
They created the modern gray together just because Stalin used to do this thing, because Mengele used to do this thing back in the day where he would split open Jewish people's heads and put extra skull in them just to see what they'd look like.
Yeah, strange it turns out.
Now, of course, the World War I style panic was just step one. Step two would come when us Americans, admittedly an excitable people, clogged up the air traffic and radar systems with false reports of flying saucers, leaving the entire country open to a Ruski air attack. It's even possible, or actually, if you listen to Henry, it is probable that these deformed Mengele babies were the inspiration for the infamous gray alien appearance. All were about 4 feet tall, huge heads, abnormally shaped eyes, and were besieged by other, quote-unquote, anatomical conundrums, as Annie Jacobson put it.
Which means they were smooth down there.
Oh, I see. Is it possible they were just trying to get rid of them? Just get them out of the country?
Get
The children that they didn't want?
I mean, there was only like 4 of them. I'm sure Russia had a lot more than just 4.
They still do. And do not adopt from Russia. They bait and switch.
And a part of the reason why they flipped out about this crash was because they were using German-held hover technology. And they did take the debris that crashed and sent it to they sent it to, where was it? The
right field.
Right field, in order to re-engineer it, because we wanted to get that technology from them, because I guess the people that we were paying on the Operation Paperclip dole weren't giving that up yet either.
Right.
Reverse engineer, yeah?
Now, and before we start taking the moral high ground here as Americans, know that Jacobson's source also claimed that the United States was doing the exact same thing.
Which is how they knew that what the kids were.
Yeah.
When they saw the kids all deformed and shit, they picked these guys, EG&G, which was a group of engineers that were involved with the Manhattan Project as well. It's 6 guys, and they flew them out to Nevada, which is also where the name Area 51 came from. It came from this experiment was set up in 1951, and Area 51 got named for the year. And so they showed up to this area, and they gave them like a fucking memo that said, listen, what we're going to try and do, we're going to reverse engineer these ships, and then you're also going to figure out what happened to these kids and how do we peel it back. And the reason why they knew that they were children is because the U.S. government was already doing the same shit.
Right. Oh, I thought it was because it was a bunch of fun drawings inside the plane. Children love to write on walls.
They really do. But then they said they found 2 kids that were semi-conscious after the crash, and they said they put them in cylinders of gel with nose, like air hooks up.
Oh, like Independence Day.
Like an Independence Day, or in like every alien thing you've ever seen. That they were suspended in gel and looked after. And this is a part where it's crazier than aliens.
And those children grew up to be our friend Holden McNeely, which is very nice.
Patrick Ewing.
Oh, I love Patrick Ewing. Great New York Nick.
Now, the majority of these experiments, which supposedly continued until 1973, were performed at the Dixon Institute for the Retarded in Illinois and the New Jersey State Colony for the Feeble-Minded, both now closed.
I heard that they have some of the worst science classes in the country, but some of the best recesses.
Yeah, oh my
ever
God.
recorded.
Now, all this was done on the authority of the Atomic Energy Commission, who was the organization in charge of the post-war development of peaceful atomic science and technology. And the man behind it all was the head of the U.S. Office of Scientific Research and Development, a Mr. Vannevar Bush.
Always there.
Well, Vannevar Bush, not related to the president or Nazi Bushes.
Vannevar Bush. That's an incredible name.
Isn't it, though?
Wow.
I'm going to name my child Vannevar.
Vannevar Zabrowski. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, Vannevar was a totally different Bush. Vannevar would go on to co-found what is now the 5th largest defense contractor in the world, Raytheon, which means, maybe not so coincidentally, light from the gods.
Wow, terrifying.
Yeah, that's a lofty name.
Yeah.
Man, you should just like
Mass murder weapons.
It should just be called like "We build good things" or like
Yeah.
"Oh, good fun, have fun, build things."
Kill stuff. Speaking of kill stuff, that brings us to the Nazis. Who
Well,
are
actually,
always there.
I watched a special on Hitler's bunker
It's
in
great with
Berlin.
it. Yeah.
Very good. And the Nazis were attacked very aggressively.
Absolutely.
And Hitler did not think they were going to come to Berlin. And when they did, he said, "What are you doing?"
I gotta tell you,
I never thought they would attack Berlin.
that bunker right now, that'd be like a $2,500 studio in New York.
Oh, it's a beautiful bunker.
It's a parking lot now.
No, well, it's still there, but yes. But yes, it's underground. It's under the parking lot.
Now, supposedly, the Nazis were masters of UFO technology.
UFO-like technology.
Right.
Can we say, I mean,
Pedantic piece of shit.
but I mean, Hitler was a bad person.
Yes.
Okay.
Never been good.
But he did have a fascination with certain things that are kind of interesting.
Yeah.
You know, the supernatural, the macabre. Obviously, we did a whole episode on the Satanism aspects of Nazism. and things like
Absolutely. The occult stuff. Hitler was, I mean, he was
Curious.
Curious.
He was curious.
He was
And you
a
know, it's-
curious fella.
I just wish that most of their jumps in science hadn't completely featured. Basically, every jump they did in science featured at least one hook on the ship that would be for elongating a penis.
Yes, that's true.
And as far as the Nazis and UFOs go, and as far as the Nazis and advanced technology goes, CIA agent Gene Poteet said with a fair amount of confidence,
Hitler invented stealth.
and
Is that your interpretation of a fair amount of confidence?
is that what Gene Poteet sounds like?
Hitler invented stealth.
There we go. That's a fair amount of
That's
confidence.
a fair amount. And Hitler used that technology to build his stealth bomber, the Horton Ho 229.
God, it sounds like a special, like
Huge prostitute.
yeah, a huge prostitute, or just like 5 pounds of mashed potatoes here.
Now, the flying saucer wing of the Luftwaffe was reportedly called the Wunderwaffe. And naturally, when we snatched up all those Nazi scientists after World War II through Operation Paperclip, we got in on some of that sweet Wunderwaffe action.
Can we start going back to calling them Nazis?
Yeah,
Nazis.
Nazis. Them or even Ratsies.
Yeah, Ratsies.
Yeah, get the Ratsies and the Ruskies. Get them out of here. Now, a 2014 documentary called UFOs in the Third Reich.
It's a great watch and
It's a lot of fun.
fifth date material.
That documentary claimed that the craft recovered at Roswell was actually a UFO designed by engineers Rudolf Schriever and Otto Habermal between 1941 and 1943. And the plans for this craft came over to America with the Nazis. We tried building it, fucked it up, and crashed it in the desert in 1947.
Now this-
and became the Roswell
Now,
incident.
this is where I want to say again, the layers of disinformation and the stories that have been built into Roswell are all completely insane. I wonder why some of them exist. Why did this officer, quote unquote, anonymously tell Annie Jacobson that this is what's happening at Area 51, that this is what happened? Right? Like, why did that story come out of nowhere? Maybe that is why they wanted it to keep it so secret, but it's just so nuts. It's even more nuts than aliens.
Well, the Russian one is nuts. The Nazi one kind of makes sense.
But the Nazi one is also...
The Nazi one is the most reasonable theory we put forth so far.
But is the UFO technology even real? We don't see planes hovering now. It's 2016.
Maybe it just didn't work very well.
But it just seems like if they were zip-zopping all over the place in fucking discs that had 0-point energy, whatever the fuck it's called, we'd have it. It'd be places.
Maybe it was unsustainable. Maybe the airplane industry, in conjunction with the automobile
I'm about
industry.
to leave. I'm about to leave. No, it's true.
No,
Because
maybe it's very possible that,
the
you know, that
fuel
this is
energy, the fuel companies.
Yeah, a free, clean energy source would be hidden from us, or it could be the exact opposite, that it is cost prohibitive, that it takes, you know, a ton of plutonium to make 0-point energy, or it could be that the power sources were from an unknown source,
It's
and we
people. It's people.
if it was people, we would would have zero problem.
We would get rid of the homeless problem in a second. We
yeah.
just grind them up into UFO fuel.
Yeah, or it could be
You
that
should
we
talk about
just
that on
ran out
Fox
of it.
News tomorrow.
Yeah.
Do
Grind up homeless people because they can be used for UFO technology. No, to fuel UFO technology.
That will please your base.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it, Ben.
I guarantee I do it. Guarantee it.
Then, of course, if it's not the Nazis and it's not the Russians, of course, there's the possibility that it is God.
Now, this is from the Invisibles. You're excited about this.
Well, I'm very excited about this, and I think Grant Morrison's The Invisibles, while it is fiction, honestly, just as credible as any other thing, any other source that we use for alien episodes.
Why is it never the Portuguese?
They are having a great time. They don't need to be involved in any of this horseshit. They're literally eating tapas. They have beautiful beaches.
Right.
The people are beautiful. Why the fuck would they get involved with this? It's like Morocco.
Yeah,
you never
that's a
hear
good
about this shit from Morocco.
All right, good
because they're
point.
just having a great time.
Yeah, the
Right.
Portuguese had their time like hundreds of years ago. They did
Okay.
all the colonization, all the exploration.
They literally invented slavery.
Yeah.
They did bad shit.
Yeah. Now, this theory, this Grant Morrison's theory, it says that what was captured in New Mexico in 1947 was, for all intents and purposes, God. Here is an abridged version from what I remember. The aforementioned Trinity atomic test in the New Mexico desert opened a hole in quote-unquote reality, and when Robert Oppenheimer uttered the words,
I am become death, destroyer of worlds.
he invoked the idiot god of nuclear war, which caused the creator of their universe in the form of Magic Mirror to goop out into the New Mexico desert, where it was promptly scooped up and kept captive in, you guessed it, Dulce underground base.
So it's either Doi Doi Russians or God?
Yes. And maybe there's no difference between the two.
Oh, okay.
I had a guidance counselor in high school that said how he knew that God was real was because a mentally challenged nephew of his made him a birthday cake once, and it was like, and that misshapen cake was the real sign of love from the universe.
That's the miracle?
That's
Is
what
it
he
a
said.
A cake?
Yeah, he's missing chromosomes.
I see.
He's a mistake. I think he's
that's not
beautiful.
true.
I think it's
Beautiful.
fine. He should be allowed to live.
Yeah,
right.
or run a restaurant.
That's right. And there's a great Down syndrome child who hugs a lot of people at a restaurant.
He doesn't run the record. He doesn't. He doesn't.
We're not getting into it.
He doesn't
Admittedly,
look at the
prob-
Quicken accounts.
Admittedly, he probably does not make the schedule.
No.
For those that don't know, YouTube the story. It's a feel-good story about a person who loves to hug.
Hugs everyone. And of course, if it's not Russians, if it's not Nazis, if it's not God, who else could it be? The devil.
The devil.
It's always something. You know what? Don't blame the fucking devil.
Don't blame the devil.
Don't blame the devil. The devil's fine with you.
cooler
The devil
if it was
barely exists, and you're nothing. You are nothing.
Why are you yelling at people?
I'm already mad.
It would be so much cooler if it was the devil.
Yeah, it would. It would.
Yeah, it
It'd be
would
way more metal.
And of course he crashes the plane. He's getting blown by a like an 8-headed lizard demon woman.
Fuck yeah.
Well, it wasn't the devil inside the plane.
Oh,
it was
I
the
see.
devil controlling the aircraft.
Now, this information comes from the highly reputable echoesofenoch.com.
Yeah.
And it's a site that specializes in biblical research of the paranormal.
Yeah, and the man who runs the site, Jim Wilhelms, actually moved himself and his wife to Roswell from Detroit in 2003, following, quote,
A calling from the Lord to stand in the gap from one of the biggest lies to come against the faith in a personal God since before the flood.
Also, Detroit is not doing well.
No.
Good
Is-
city to get
No,
out
is the wife there voluntarily or is she a hostage?
of. Right. Good question.
He even went so far as to open up a competing museum/shop across the street from the International UFO Museum and Research Center in Roswell, which he is not a fan of.
Unbelievable.
Although, if I remember correctly from my trip there last summer, it was no longer open for business.
Weird, it wasn't a hit.
Strange.
Now, despite having his own storefront, Wilhelm said his ideas are, quote, just plain ignored by colleagues on both the UFO and Christian sides. But nonetheless, Wilhelms has managed to find a passage in the Bible that he believes with all his heart is directly related to the Roswell incident. Again, this is an abridged version, but it is from Zechariah chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. Then I turned and raised my eyes and saw there was a flying scroll. And he said to me,
What do you see?
So I answered, I see a flying scroll. Then the angel who talked with me came out and said to me,
Lift your eyes now and see what this is that goes forward.
So I asked, what is it? And he said,
It is the basket that is going forward.
and he also said,
This is their resemblance throughout the earth. Here is a lead disc lifted up, and this is a woman sitting inside the basket.
then he said,
This is wickedness.
and he thrust her down into the basket.
It's wickedness.
And threw the lead cover over its mouth. Then I raised my eyes and looked, and there were two women coming with the wind in their wings.
It's wickedness.
For they had wings like the wings of a stork, and they lifted up the basket between earth and heaven. So I said to the angel who talked with me, where are they carrying the basket? And he said to me,
To build a house for it in the land of Shinar. When it is ready, the basket will be set there on its base.
I mean, it just sounds like they used to write down night terrors, and then it became the Bible.
What does all this mean, though?
Nothing. That is. How is anybody religious?
There's a woman in a basket.
There's a woman in a basket.
And somebody dropped a newspaper in front of a fan.
It's a balloon. It's a balloon.
She's got stork wings.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So Wilhelm's, he goes on for pages and pages on his extremely badly designed website. Seriously, this is one of the worst alien sites that I have ever seen.
It's thick.
It's thick. I'm also talking about it's got the flashing stars GIF background.
Yeah.
The table of contents is red text on a yellow scale, like reptilian scales background. Impossible to read. This guy needs to get his shit together.
But the breakdown of it is this.
Yeah.
Which I really like.
This is the headline.
The craft discovered at Roswell was actually sent by the devil to support panspermia, which is the theory that life on Earth originated in the stars rather than from God's own finger.
Yes, and not only that, but the technology we recovered from Roswell is not actually helping us as a species, but is rather speeding us ever more quickly into the end times. From Revelations 9:1, and the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit.
Let's go! Let's go!
And the bottomless pit, of course, refers not to the gaping maw of Hades, as one would imagine, but rather something else that tends to go hand in hand with aliens: occult knowledge.
Which is basically just knowing what runes are, knowing that candles can help you, and how all of that can get you laid.
Yep. I mean, yeah, I believe it. We should do an episode on Revelations.
Oh, we will.
Oh, yeah,
I have a wonderful book that I'm about to crack open. We are absolutely doing an episode
can't
on
wait.
Revelations.
Yeah, it's a great chapter.
Oh, it's wonderful. Now, Wilhelm says that Roswell and its accompanying interest in aliens is one of the events that set off the occult bonfire that's been burning through our country and our world for decades now. And as the final word of proof, Wilhelm presented a single line from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verse 17. I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven.
Very cool.
That's double bass.
Oh my god.
Svar, I gotta say, bro, I love your solo in the bottomless pit of Maul, but I gotta say, can we cool it on some of the double bass? He's like, but I just got this double bass, man. Roswell.
Oh my goodness.
Something happened.
Yeah.
What it was?
Right.
You tell me.
You tell me.
Yes.
That's what people have been asking me for the last, 3 weeks, a month. They're like, so what's the next episode? Like, fucking Roswell, man. They're like, so what do you think happened?
Shut up.
Yeah.
You try. It's literally been consuming my life.
Yeah.
The last 2 weeks. All I've been doing is reading and watching Roswell.
Yeah.
I think it's a balloon.
You think it's a balloon?
I think it's a balloon. Why the hell not?
You know, my thing is, I don't think that it's balloon, but I think that it's a balloon to somebody. You know what I mean?
What is a balloon exactly?
I don't think
Let's change it around.
What's a balloon?
If it's not a balloon to us,
it's a balloon to them.
Yeah,
you know what I
that's
mean?
true.
If
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
aliens just probably being like, I wish we hadn't lost that taco truck in Roswell last week. You know what I mean? Like, that's all they could they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
But I also believe there is something too. There's a book I'm reading right now. If you want to know everything there is to know about modern UFOs, in one book, it's this book, and it's very interesting. It's if you are a person like me whose whole life has been marred and destroyed by your UFO knowledge, it's a lot of stuff that you already know, but it's very useful, and it puts it all in one place. But the one thing he kind of talks about is the nature of UFOs. It's very interesting, and the idea of them being either natural or handmade, and whether or not that is mechanical or animal. And what we're looking at for UFOs, a lot of the times, that if they are interdimensional crafts, if they are something from another realm entirely, they can be something that we can never understand. Like literally something like a natural machine, like a machine that is alive, that it's a UFO thing that literally, the UFOs themselves are alive and they can come through,
Right.
and there is another type of entity altogether. So yeah, maybe it crashed, and maybe it had a fucking heart attack. Maybe the thing was alive and
All
had
right.
a fucking brain aneurysm,
I
and it
think-
died in the middle of a goddamn desert because that's where a lot of old people fucking die.
We've
They
reached
die
the
in middle of
max.
a goddamn-
Henry, we're losing you. Henry,
I
come
just
back.
get-
Henry, put the book down just for a second. Okay.
Psychedelic nature to
Yes.
aliens.
Yes.
Difficult to put your finger on.
I think for right now we have reached our limit.
I think
of
we have.
alien conversation. Henry, we have to keep you alive.
Oh, I'm bringing this book on the plane I'm about to go on.
Don't start yelling.
No, I'll tell them being like, this plane's alive. What if the plane's alive?
The plane might be alive. I think you're going to get kicked off the flight. Terrorism is really a hot topic right now, so be careful.
Like
Henry.
the store.
Yes.
Just like the.
Like the store.
Let's go get chain wallets and a corn t-shirt.
Oh, I love
everyone.
a good
At the
chain
ISIS
wallet.
store.
You can't steal a chain wallet. All right, well, go to the Facebook page, the last podcast on the Facebook page, and let us know what you think about Roswell.
Please do. And, of course, this weekend on Saturday, that would be the 26th, Saturday, March 26th, our live show, our monthly live show is happening right here at the Creek in the Cave. Actually, every show here at the Creek is now, every weekend show is now selling tickets. It's $5. You can buy tickets in advance. Last month, we packed the place out, so be sure to get your tickets in advance because I'm pretty sure we're going to sell out on this. Go to creeklic.com to get your tickets for this month's live show. March 26th, 10 p.m., Creek in the Cave, Long Island City, Queens, New York, off the G train and the 7.
And even
So
if it's
excited.
even if it's sold out, we got a great bar here, so we'll be able to hang out, and we always
Yeah, so
hang out
just sit and
afterwards.
get fucking
Yeah.
hammered and
Yep.
start swinging at people,
Yeah.
start yelling at people. Buy the book, UFOs for the 21st Century Mind, and sit and yell at people about it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and we're also going to be showing the show downstairs. We got a little projector
Oh,
and
nice.
a jumbotron downstairs, so even if you can't get in, you can still watch the show down there for free. We're not going to be charging for the jumbotron.
You won't be able to smell my beautiful cologne, though.
No.
Yeah, that's the problem. You want to be up in the theater, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
a good secondary prize.
Yeah, it's
Cannabis by Santal.
And of course, thank you everybody for supporting us on Patreon. If you want to support us on Patreon, go to patreon.com/lastpodcast on the left. Every little bit counts. Every tiny little bit counts so much. I'm in the middle of booking, I would say about 5 different out-of-town shows.
Cool.
It's the
all over
shit.
the United States here in the coming months. The overseas shows, it's coming soon.
It's
Just
sliding
wait for it.
in.
It's sliding in. So just kind of keep here. We're going to be, thank you so much because of your Patreon support, we're now able to come to cities near you all across the United States and hopefully soon around the world. And if you just want a Last Podcast on the Left t-shirt, go to cavecomedyradio.com/merch and check out all of our other shows while you're there.
That's right. CCR, thank you guys so much for listening to all the shows Marcus and I do. We got a political show called Abling and Stomp At. If you want to feel like you're getting drunk with your friends, listen to Roundtable of Gentlemen. If you want to listen to some good music that you never even knew existed, listen to Lucky Bone Show.
The Lucky Bone Show, mixcloud.com/Marcus Parks. Thank
And
you.
if you
It's
want
really,
to hear
really good.
Marcus talk about relationships with Henry's sister, listen to Sex and Other Human Activities.
I love page 7. Page
Actually,
7 is
it's
my
not
favorite.
really relation. It's more mental health.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's more if you got bad brains like I do. Come
Write
on.
a bad email. No, it's a great. It's a really. Page 7 is also a fantastic
That's right.
show.
Entertainment.
And watch my character special on
Yeah.
Netflix, please, and berate Netflix for not giving me a television show already.
Yeah.
even though they already
They
took a
just
gigantic
gave you
risk,
one.
and it technically is sort of a failure.
It's not a failure.
No,
Stop
it's
that.
not.
It says it's fine. It's fine. Follow us on Instagram at LP on the left. Follow me on Instagram at Dr. Fantasy if you give a shit.
Me on Instagram at Marcus Parks if you like seeing, like witch titties.
Yeah, I do.
Who doesn't?
As a matter
Yeah.
of fact, I fucking do.
I'm going to start following you on Instagram. I'm at Ben Kissel 1, but I never use that. Find me on Twitter at Ben Kissel, Marcus Parks on Twitter at Marcus Parks, and Henry is at Henry Loves You.
Hail Satan and let him deliver you. Not a pizza, because that's for fucking dorks.
Right, pizza's great.
And a Halgin.
Hail yourselves.
And megustalations. One and all.
For more shows like the one you just listened to, go to cavecomedyradio.com.